Hey there, Daniel from GrowYourMusicStudio.com, coming to you with another video where I'm talking about the marketing insights and some of the things that are just on my mind as it pertains to growing my own studio, as it pertains to helping others grow their studios. So, here's what's on my mind this week. I have been thinking about a topic that I haven't thought about in quite some time. If you go back way in my archives on the Grow Your Music Studio blog to one of the very first posts that I ever wrote, in fact, it could even be the first post. One of those original things I wrote about was the critical importance of running surveys to your families. And I'm going to link that post up here below. It's not my intention to rehash that. But this is something that over the last few years and in these videos, I've continued to reference and just used it as a mental marker for something that you should do. And I even gave some thoughts as to what you could do with that. But what I want to do in today's video, and some of the videos that I'm going to continue to do about this topic over the next few days, maybe even into next week, is actually talk about some of the things that you can do with the information you get from your own customers about what you can do with that information. The questions you ask. Now, as a point of context, basically my thesis is that every studio should run a survey to their families and to find out what parents think about lessons, to find out what things parents are concerned about with their lessons. And my further thesis is that the closer you get to the thoughts and the words of your studio families, of your studio's customers, your marketing is going to become more effective. Okay. What I haven't done is really gotten into haven't necessarily gotten into the nitty-gritty of how that actually all works. So here in this video and over the next few videos, I'm actually going to unpack that, explore that, and want to start with the first one today. And I'm just going to jump right into it. I don't really like to hem-haw around or draw attention to myself. So the first thing is you should use your studio survey, other than figuring out how to come up with marketing messages for your studio, you should use it to actually determine how well your lesson program is working and how well it's going. And what I will say is that it's human nature to create a mental map for something you're doing. Whether that's connected to reality or not doesn't matter. Our brains doesn't want an information gap. That old phrase of nature abhors a vacuum. Well, our minds hate for there to be a curiosity gap. And this is why, when there's a cliffhanger in an episode of a TV show, especially if it's on Netflix, immediately you think, oh, well, I'm watching that next one. It's because we're trying to close that curiosity gap. And in the same way, when we think about our studio, and again, whether it's connected to reality or not, we have a mental map of how well we think we're doing. The truth is, this can often be determined as to whether you're an optimist or a pessimist. I've worked with people who are type A, and they're perfectionists, and they think they're doing very, very poorly, when in reality, they're doing really, really well. And I've seen the opposite, where people are doing poorly, but they're kind of optimists, and so they think they're doing really, really well, when in fact the opposite is true. I've even seen this true in my own life. I participate, or my studio participates, in the Royal Conservatory Music Program. And the very first year that I did it, I won't go as far as to say that I was a nervous wreck, but I was very, very concerned about how all the students did. Here I'd promised all these things to parents. Parents had paid to enter the achievement program. I had over 30 students taking the exam, and I just over-prepared all these kids. And it was great. They did well in the test. We all got familiar. None of us had ever done an achievement test before, and we got familiar with what it was like, and everyone got through it. It was great. No one failed. Second year comes along. Now I understand what it takes to get a student through. And so as we were going through the prep period, I wasn't nearly as rigorous as I had been the year before, to the point that as we got close to the exam date, I was actually starting to get nervous because of my lack of preparation and how much I had left on the kids. Just learn those 3 pages of scales. I'm not even going to listen to them, basically. And so we get to weeks before the test, I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, some of these kids are in real trouble. And I really started pushing right there at the end. We get to the exam date, the kids come to the center. I had something like 40 students come to the center to take the exam. Everyone takes the exam. Feedback was generally good in the day, but I am just biting my fingernails as it's time to, or as the time when the exam scores are released, as that time approached. The exam scores come in. I get a notification from the conservatory. I go log on. I'm biting my fingernails. And what happens? Everyone had scored higher the second year than the first year. And so this entire time, for almost a month and a half, I had just been living this reality that wasn't true. And what I'm saying is that it's very possible that in your studio, with your marketing, or with your program itself, with the actual educational content, you could be living a reality that is different than what is true. Now, great, this is awesome, but it's abstract information. Let's get even further. Let's go deeper than just kind of this abstract thought. And this is what I'll say. What you need is measurables. What you need is some point of reference to let you know how you're doing. And your parents are going to, on a survey, let you know what they think is going on, but you will be surprised at how out of touch they are and actually the metrics upon which they are measuring whether or not you're doing a good job as a teacher, whether or not their child is doing a great job within the lesson program itself. They're going to have a mental map as well. And it's probably less connected to reality than the studio owners because they don't have a degree in education or they don't have a degree in music and they haven't been in this profession for a while. So parents could measure things on how many practice sessions are happening at home, how they feel the lessons are going, how many tears they're experiencing versus how many tears they experienced a year ago, how much arguing is going on. There's all sorts of things. And this is what I would say. And this is really the point I've been driving to this entire video. You can use this as a wake-up call, as a reality check for you as to the mismatch between you and your studio parents, and then what you can come back with is metrics of your own. And what I recommend that every studio owner have is a couple of metrics that they can point to saying, yes, something good is going on here in the studio. For me, one of them is the Royal Conservatory. And I'm not being paid to say this. I just really believe in the program. I talk about it a lot. And it's really on my mind now because we're in the registration period for the May exam right now. And I'm starting to prep some of the older kids, some of the more advanced kids for it. But I can point to the exam scores of my students that are unconnected to me. They get it from an outside third party. I can point to that and say, yeah, a lot of good things are going on here at the studio. Another metric that I use is how quickly kids get through books, but with quality. So it isn't just the speed that they're getting through books. It's can they do it with quality? And I have plenty of transfer students that have come in that the average, what they were used to in other studios was about a year per book, which I think is abhorrent. I really want kids to constantly be learning new music. I want kids leaving each week with 5, 7, 9 pages worth of material to do. And again, all of these insights for me, all of these thoughts for me were driven by getting connected to the thoughts of my studio families, taking customer feedback seriously, so much so that I ran surveys and then started getting feedback from parents and figuring out, we are really not on the same page. And as a business owner, that is a very dangerous place to be. Because if you're communicating to what you think parents want to hear, you're going to lose. If you're communicating, not understanding what parents want to hear, you're also going to lose. So if you're disconnected from reality in both ways, it's very likely that your marketing is flat, boring, and ineffective. And so what I would just say is kind of a final thought before I close down for the day. And look forward to tomorrow where I'm going to kind of discuss the second implication or the second thing you can do with customer feedback is just to say this. Use surveys. And the first thought here is use it to determine how well your lesson program is going. Get on the same page with your families. Use metrics to determine whether or not your students in your studio are doing well, and then let parents know what those metrics are. Teach them how to judge whether a child's doing well or not. Teach them how to judge whether you're doing well or not. use that as customer education. You will find that you'll have greater loyalty. You'll find you'll have greater retention. You'll find that you guys are communicating, you and your customers are communicating much better, and you'll even find it to be very persuasive when you can point to some of these metrics to new families or people who are considering joining your studio and say, yeah, you know what, it's not just my opinion. I'm not just going to say I'm a great teacher. I can point to these 3 things that are an outside judge or are evidence that kids are doing really, really well here. They're having fun, they're making progress, they're covering this many pages per week, they're covering this many books per year. So anyway, that's all I was thinking of today. I might have some more implications that I'm going to draw out over the next few days and maybe even leading into next week. But thank you so much for watching. One quick question for you, if you choose to answer it. Have you run a survey before? Just write a yes or no in the comments below. Really interesting. Or if you have a question about something I've said here, would really love to hear that. Would love to interact with you in the comments. I'm always going to be keeping track of this. And as always, I really love those comments. I love it when I get that thumbs up. It really helps me know that this is helping you. Share this with someone who could use it. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.